Hey, what's up everybody? Jake here and welcome to the hobby. 3 months ago, I did a video talking about the total value of my Pokemon card collection. And at the time, the value of my collection was currently sitting at around $200,000, which is a ton of money. And it was a little bit of a wake-up call because that's way more money than I ever want to have when it comes to Pokemon card collecting. And right now, that number has ballooned to an even more ridiculous amount because the total value of my collection is currently sitting at around $328,000, which is astronomical. It's ridiculous. It's more money than I ever want to have in shiny pieces of cardboard. So in today's video, yes, I am talking about how I plan on selling off some pieces of my collection over the next 6 to 12 months. This is not going to be a fire sale, but I do plan on selling off some pieces of my collection and reducing the total value of my collection down to a number that is ultimately more reasonable. I'm fully self-aware that this is a very first world problem to have. It's a very first world problem to have to say your collection is too valuable, right? I'm fully self-aware of that. But at the same time, I want to share my headspace and where I'm currently at because ultimately, I have a family and I would like to secure a future for my family. And I know that this value inside of my collection is better off being utilized for other things, more safe things that are going to secure the future for my family. And ultimately, what that means is I would love to secure a college fund for my kids in the future if they ever want to pursue their education. And at the same time, that money would be incredibly useful in case of a future family emergency, whether that be a medical emergency or something of that nature. My family will know that regardless of what happens to us in the future, we have money set aside for that potential risk, right? And that money is not sitting around in pieces of cardboard. And I think it's super cool that my collection is very, very valuable. But at the same time, there are more meaningful things to me than my collection. And I would rather focus on that rather than my collection. And I'm very blessed to know that my collection is extremely expensive and it's worth something and that someone else out there is willing to pay a lot of money for it. But there are pieces inside of my collection that I'm willing to let go of. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about this specifically, which is my headspace, where I'm currently at, what would I potentially be okay selling and letting go of, and at the same time, hopefully this will resonate with you, or if you are in a similar scenario, whether your collection is expensive or not. If you've been collecting Pokemon cards over the past couple of years, your collection has probably seen a similar level of growth. Right now, if I were to look at the data, my collection has currently been climbing at a rate of over $40,000 per month for the past 3 months. And that is absolutely ridiculous because that pretty much means my collection is climbing at a rate that is faster per month than the average individual American makes in a year, which is ridiculous. That's an insane amount of money. That is extremely unsustainable. I do not expect my collection to be climbing at a rate of $40,000 per month for the rest of my life. It's not going to happen. There will come a time when this growth will slow down. And is it possible that if I sell off some cards today, are they going to be insanely more expensive in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Absolutely. There's plenty of times when I've sold off cards in the past where they've climbed a ton in value over the years, but I do not regret selling off cards in the past. I've sold off Pokemon cards to make meaningful differences in my life and my family's life, such as I sold off a bunch of Pokemon cards in the past to purchase a property for me and my family to live in. So we bought a house by selling Pokemon cards, which is super cool. I'm super blessed and privileged to know that I was able to do that. But at the same scenario, I don't regret making that decision. I sold off Pokemon cards to make a meaningful difference in my family's life, and I'm very happy and grateful that I was able to do that. There's no world where I regret that decision, you know? At the end of the day, there are things that matter more to me than Pokemon cards. So I wanted to go over that in today's video, what I plan to do with my collection, why am I selling off my collection, what pieces am I okay selling off inside of my collection, and maybe you are trying to make a similar decision in your life right now, because I know there are a ton of people out there that are kind of in the same headspace. If you're currently collecting Pokemon cards for the past couple of years, I'm seeing people where their collection has gone up enough in value where they're saying, oh my goodness, should I sell off my collection to pay off my student loan? Should I sell off my collection to purchase a vehicle because I haven't driven a car in 6 months and I do need to get around? Should I sell off my collection to make a down payment for a property for me and my family? And so I'm going to hopefully be able to help you make that decision today and see where you currently land at the end of this. Before we get started though, I'd like to thank Collector for sponsoring today's video. Collector is my go-to tracking app for my whole entire collection. If you'd like to see where all of this data is currently coming from, you can click the link down in the description to actually get linked immediately to my whole entire portfolio. If you'd like to see every single card that I currently have inside of my collection, it is fully available on the Collector app. You can see every card that I currently have inside of my collection, what it's currently worth, what is the value of every single card inside of my collection, and at the same time, you can also track your whole entire collection on the Collector app. The Collector app is incredibly accurate because they track sales data from multitudes of different marketplaces and give you up-to-date information on the total value of your collection. Many other top content creators also use the Collector app as their go-to app for keeping and tracking their whole entire collection. You'll see Collector everywhere because they are the go-to place for tracking your collection currently. If you're looking to scan your Pokemon cards and see the immediate value of every single card, even when you don't know what card you currently have, whether it's inside of a unique set, whether you have no idea what you're currently looking at, the Collector app will tell you immediately the card, the value, and at the same time, all the information that is pertinent to you. Try out Collector today and you won't look back. So when you look at my total collection, you can actually see that over the past couple of years, it's actually been incredibly flat. I started tracking my collection on Collector a couple of years ago, and at the time, you can see it's been flat for the past couple of years. For the past couple of years, we've been sitting at around close to $100,000 in total value. I may have added a couple of cards here or there. I may have had periods of time when I've sold off a couple of cards, but in general, the total value of my collection has remained very steady at around $100,000. The main growth in my collection did not really start until January of this year. If you look at January of this year, that is where things really kicked off. At January of this year, my collection's value is sitting around $140,000. A very large amount of money, but respectable, and I'm very happy with that. I don't think that's a big issue. But over the past 6 months, my collection has pretty much doubled in value. It's absolutely ballooned from being worth at around $142,000 to being at around $320,000 today, which is an insane climb. This is an absolutely insane climb, and it all really happened in the last 6 months, and a lot of people like to blame prismatic evolutions to it, and I don't really disagree. The hype in Pokemon card collecting has absolutely reached a euphoric state over the past couple of months where everything's on the up and up and up and up, and it just keeps on climbing, and it's very possible that this is not the peak. I'm not saying July is currently the peak. I don't know what the peak is. It's very possible that we'll keep going up and up and up, $400,000, $500,000, and we may not reach the peak of the hype for another year. I have no idea, but at some point it is going to come down. We all know it. There's no world where this rate of growth of the past couple of months is going to continue forever. If you look at the data, like I said, basically my collection is climbing at a rate of around $46,000 per month over the past 3 months, and it's been extremely consistent. However, that is extremely unusual level of growth, and I don't plan on that being the case forever. And I want to de-escalate some of that risk on my end because I know that money is better off going towards my kids' future college fund, towards an emergency fund, towards a rainy day fund, towards a medical emergency fund. Those are some of the areas that I'd rather put that money towards. So the next couple of months, I do plan on selling off some pieces of my collection. It's going to be kind of interesting to see what I'm willing to let go of. Some of the items that I immediately am okay selling off are pieces that I'm not as attached to, pieces that I have duplicate copies of, like this Brilliant Star booster box case that I had sitting around for a year or two that we were supposed to do something with, but we ended up never doing something with. I also have an Astral Radiance case. Like, these are items that I'm very clearly okay letting go of. Am I okay letting go of a booster box or two of Evolving Skies? Probably. Those are items that I have less attachment to. Anything that I have multiple copies of are things that I'm more okay letting go of. I've already let go of a couple of copies of my Japan Post Pikachu promo. I don't want to let go off of more You can see I have a couple of the stamp box because I think they're amazing. I have 3 copies of the sealed Japan stamp box currently, and I bought these for $200, and you can see how quickly they balloon as well. Like, a lot of the items that I purchased at very cheap prices have just keep climbing at a rate that is really unsustainable. And yes, there are pieces in here that I'm okay letting go of. I don't know how much I can reduce my collection's value over the next couple of months. If the total value of my collection reaches $500,000 at the end of this year, yes, that is an insane amount of money, but at the same time, it means I failed. I don't want to have a $500,000 Pokemon card collection. I barely want to have a $300,000 Pokemon card collection. It keeps me up at night. My collection is currently insured, and it's very expensive to keep a collection of this value currently insured. And that's just money that is being drained from my account, even though nothing of value is really being added, right? It's nothing changed. The cards that I have inside of my collection are the same cards that I've had for the past couple of years. Their value has changed, but they're still just sitting around in my collection on display, and I appreciate them, but nothing's really changed. I'm just spending money to keep my collection safe, and it's a lot of risk, and ultimately, I don't want to carry that level of risk, and I think it's very fair for me to reduce some of the value inside of my collection, and I absolutely want to destigmatize selling Pokemon cards because it is a trading card hobby where you should be allowed to have that opportunity to trade off some pieces inside of your collection. If you're someone that's been collecting for a couple of years now, I think you've probably seen some similar level of growth, and I want you to know that it's okay to sell off pieces inside of your collection. Not everything needs to remain inside of your collection forever. There are pieces that you're probably okay letting go of, and this is not something that I'm going to fire sell. I don't plan on just selling everything inside of my collection at pennies on the dollar. I don't need to sell off pieces inside of my collection immediately. I plan to slowly divest some pieces of it, and I think that's the right approach. You don't need to make a fire sale of your Pokemon card collection and do something that you regret. I want the pieces inside of my collection to go to other people that will appreciate these cards as much as I do. So I'm going to try to find the right collector for some pieces inside of my collection. Like I said, if I have multiple pieces of it, like I happen to have 2 of these Mewtwo Tag Team GX10, that's something that I'm willing to drop down to 1. I have a couple of Tag Team GX booster boxes. It's my personal favorite set, and I absolutely want to have multiple copies of these booster boxes. Maybe I don't need 5. Maybe I can reduce it to 4 or 3. So those are some of the areas that I'm willing to reduce. And if there's copies of cards that I only have 1 of, I really have to ask the question, is it something that I feel strongly attached to? Is it something that I'm okay letting go of? And that's something that I think any collector should be asking, is that ultimately a lot of the stuff that I currently have will go up in value over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Just because I have a Rebel Clash booster box and I'm selling it now doesn't mean it's not going to be more expensive. I do think this is a really cool box, and it might actually be significantly more expensive in the future. A lot of these cards I think could go up in value in the future, but I don't need all of these inside of my collection forever, and I'm okay selling off pieces if it makes a meaningful difference in my family's life. So that's at least my goal and strategy, is to look at the cards inside of my collection. What cards do I want to keep long term? What cards am I okay letting go of? What do I actually want to hold on to? And hopefully, if you guys are watching my collection with me, I'll continue to track this with you guys. But I do want to reduce the value of my collection down to a more reasonable number. I think at a minimum, I should reduce it down to 250. I think 250 is the most that I ever want to have in terms of total value. And that might mean, hey, if I want to add a card inside of my collection, it might mean I have to sell off another card, because if I'm at $250,000, obviously any card I add would only increase that number past that point. So at that point, I have to decide, okay, if I'm adding a card to my collection, that might mean I have to sell off a card inside of my collection. And that will really put some critical thinking on me, where I have to really say, okay, of these 2 cards, which one am I willing to let go of? And for me to add every single card to my collection, that also means if I have to sell off a card inside of my collection, it will make that decision of me picking cards significantly more meaningful, right? I want to make those meaningful decisions. Is every card I add, I want to put a lot of thought into it and make sure that I'm happy with that transaction and that trade, and that was something that I wanted to add, rather than just making an off the cuff decisions, right? I think a lot of times people are buying cards because they're just saying, you know what, it's a cool card, I'm just going to pick it up. But I'm at the point where I've had a collection long enough that I'm okay knowing that there are cards that I may let go of, and I'm just happy. I don't need to own every single card out there. There's plenty of cards that are really, really cool, and I understand they're really cool, but I don't need to have them. I don't feel the need to own every single card. So I'm trying to practice some moderation. And so hopefully this resonates with you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. Obviously, people can look back at this video in 5, 10, 15 years and say, man, that was the dumbest decision Jake ever made. Can you believe he sold off $100,000 of his collection when it was incredibly cheap and it's worth so much more now? And I'm okay with that. If people want to call me stupid in 15 years for selling off cards, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's a decision that I made, and it was to de-risk what I have in pieces of cardboard and to move it to something that is less risky. If I'm able to sell off 75 grand of my collection and put that money into a rainy days fund, a medical emergency fund, and my kids' future college education, that's a decision that I'm happy to make any day of the week, and I don't think I would ever regret it. Maybe my kid will regret it when they say, "What the hell, dad? Why did you sell off these cool cards? I would rather have that over a college education." But that's something that they can make the determination of for themselves down the line, what they want to do with the pieces inside of it. At that point, I'm old. What do I care about? Let me know what your thoughts are. And obviously, if you are also selling off some cards, hopefully this resonates with you. And don't feel bad about making that decision. I absolutely want to destigmatize selling Pokemon cards. I'm not a hoarder. I want to practice moderation, and hopefully that makes sense. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.